Alright guys, so now that we've pretty much gone over HTML and CSS, now I've put together a small project for us to do that implements all the technologies and features and skill sets that we've learned. And I'm going to show you that now. What it is just a small resume type profile page, and you can see it's got a nice clean look to it. It's got a texture background. We have the main area with the name and the contact info. Got a couple different areas: profile, skills, which we have an unordered list with some content. Technical area, we have a table with some different kinds of technologies that we have experience in. And our experience, basically our employment, we have Facebook, Microsoft, Google, and then just a little blurb of what we've done at those companies. And then we have the education area, and then we have this little copyright and footer. Very simple. I didn't want to do anything too big because if we were to build a big HTML site, it'd be very repetitive, so I tried to keep it simple and clean. So let's get started. And the first thing I'm going to do is create a new folder called Chapter 1, Section 7, which is the last section of this chapter. And I'm going to create my files from scratch. So I'm going to create a new folder called CSS, a new folder called Images, and I'm going to create a text document which will be index.html. Yes. Now, one thing I don't want to do is type out all the HTML because it would just take too long. So what I'm going to do is open up my final project files, and I'm just going to grab certain parts of it and I'll explain as we go. So I'm going to grab the doc type along with the head, and we know that the doc type, this is an HTML5 doc type. We have a title of Web Designer Resume, and we're including not just style.css, but we're including a reset.css file. And the reset file that I'm using is the Eric Myers reset file, and you can you can Google that. There's a couple different ones, but I prefer his. He just pretty much margins everything out, makes everything with the margin and padding of 0, so that you can start from scratch and kinda, so you can have browser compatibility. So it's really good to use a reset. Next, let's see, we have the body, the container, and we have the header, so div ID header, and I'm going to go down to and you can see what I've done here is I've added comments on the end divs so that we know where we're at, because sometimes it can get really confusing when you don't know where your div ends. So I'm going to copy that entire header block, and we have a div ID called name, which ends here. It basically has our H1 tag and then our H3 subline, subtitle. And then we have the ID, the contact ID, which is my email and phone number. Okay, so let's go back, and now this here, this div class clear, this is something that I use all the time. And what it does is when you float something to the right or the left, and then you have underneath you have an element that you don't want floated, it's gonna float, and it's gonna just ruin the flow of the document. So you need to clear it, and a lot of people will just do div style equals clear block. I'm sorry, I don't know what that was about. Alright, so, and then div. But rather than type that out, I just put a CSS style in my style sheet that says clear block instead of doing this. Alright, so I'll show you that when we get to the CSS. But that's what that does. It just clears any floats. And in this instance, the name is floated to the left and the contact's floated to the right. So then I just want to clear it out. That's all that does. Okay, so I'll grab this profile area. Which has a class of row, okay, and all the rows have a class of row. Like I said before, a class you can reuse. An ID should just be one thing. So for instance, we have ID profile. There's no other ID profiles in this page. And here we just have an H2 tag and then a paragraph. And then we close the profile div. And we want to add another clear. Okay, and then we have these skills. So I'm going to copy the skills block. And in the skills, we have an H2 tag with the class of left, which basically just floats it to the left. I can show you in my style sheet in a few minutes. And then we have an unordered list, and each list item has an H2 heading and a paragraph. And there's 3 list items. Again, we want to clear it because those list items are being floated. Okay, and next we have the technical area, which is a table. And again, we want to clear it. And then we have the experience area. Copy that. I'm also going to copy the clear div. Okay, so this is basically just some div tags. Each div has an H3 header, an H4 subheading, and a paragraph. And then finally we have the education area. And this says profile, but this should say education. Okay, the container ends. Okay, so I'll grab just the rest of this. Alright, and then we just have this footer div with whatever copyright you want to use here. And feel free to use this code and use this as you want. If you want to use it for your resume, then so be it. Alright, so I'm going to save that, and if we go to our file, this is what it looks like. So this is the finished product, and this is what ours look like. This is all the HTML is done. This is the same thing, just without CSS. So you can see how powerful CSS is. So let's go back. Chapter 7. Why is... Alright, so what we want to do is add our style sheets. So I'm going to create a reset.css and a style.css. Okay, and we have one image that we want, so let me grab that image. And it's basically just a texture that's going to repeat in the background. I can show you. You can see the background here has this texture that's not one big texture image. It's just a little image that repeats left to right and up and down, so it covers the entire background body. So what I first want to do is open up our reset. Whoop. I want to open it with Notepad++, and I'm also going to open the final reset. And like I said, this is Eric Meyer's reset. I can't remember if I made any tweaks to it, but basically it takes everything, HTML, body, all divs, all spans, all the headings, everything, and gives it a margin and padding and border of 0, and it changes the font size to 14. So by default now, if we use this reset sheet, all our H1 to H6 tags are going to have a font size of 14 pixels. Okay, and we also have a line height of 1.3 EMs for the body. Line height is just the space between text, the vertical space between the text. And we also gave our unordered lists and ordered lists a list style of none, so they'll have no bullets or numbers. We'll have to add that if we want to. Block quote has no quotes. Same thing here, block quote before and after, and our tables are set to border collapse. So that's it. It's a very short file, but it does a lot of good. So I'm actually going to copy all that and put it into our file, and that's it for that file. We don't have to touch it again. So if we go back to our page, you can see now everything is reset. And if you're wondering why we do this because certain browsers will add different formatting to different elements. If we do this, no matter what browser we open right now is going to have this, okay, and we can just start from scratch basically. So we'll have to specify if we want our headings to be a different font size. Alright, so we got to turn this into this using only CSS. So I'm going to open up my style.css, and I'm going to open the final style.css, and I'll just go through and explain the code as I'm going along. Okay, the first thing I want to do is the body tag. Alright, so the body goes, it basically is the whole entire page, everything around the text, everything. And what we did is we're going to apply a background image. So we could do background image and then just have the image name, but I like to just do background and then URL and then open parentheses. You want to put the link or the location to the image, and then you want to put if you want to repeat it or not. Since we just have repeat, that means it's going to repeat all the way to the right and all the way to the bottom. We could do repeat X, which would only have it repeat horizontally, or we could do repeat Y, which would have it repeat vertically. But we want both. Font family is going to be Georgia, and it's going to be font size of 15 pixels. So if we save this, we should see the background change. Okay, so now you can see the texture we have. And just to show you what I was just talking about, let me just do a repeat. Actually, let's do no repeat just to see the image. So this is the actual image. Okay, this is the whole image. It's very small. Now, if we want to say, if we want this image to repeat horizontally, we want to put an X. You can see now it's repeating horizontally. If we want it to repeat vertically, we can put a Y. Now it repeats vertically. What we want is to cover the entire page, so we just want repeat, and now it covers the entire page. Alright, what else do we got here? We have our strong and our clear class. So by default, the font weight of, if you put something in between strong tags in this particular template, it's not going to change. So we have to actually add that in the CSS file. And then here we have our clear class, which we've gone over, which I showed you here, which basically just clears the floats. Alright, so let's grab H1, H1 and H3. Okay, so this style will apply to all H1s and all H3s. We have 48 pixels, which is very large. Text transform, what this does, it'll take the H1 text and put it all to uppercase, and then we just have 3 pixels letter spacing. Same with here. We have the H3 is going to be an italic style font, and it's going to be 21 pixels. Okay, next we have the container, which is the whole wraparound of this part here, the entire box that everything is in. And if we look at the style sheet, it's 930 pixels. It has a margin, a top margin of 50 pixels, which you can see here. The left and right margins are auto, which means it'll put it dead set in the middle, and the bottom margin is 10 pixels. Padding, top and bottom, is 20 pixels right here, and left to right is 30 pixels. Border top is dark gray and is 6 pixels thick, so that's this big thick border right here on the top. Border bottom, we have a 3 pixel border, so it's a little thinner. And let's see, the background is a kind of a dark gray. So that's it for the container. Now we can copy the header styles. And feel free to pause this if you're going to type all this out. The header is this area here with the name and the contact info. We have a border on the bottom, and the border is dotted. Overflow hidden, that just means that the background is going to reach down as far as the content. It's not going to have the content break out of the div. Okay, header name is going to float left. Header contact is going to float right. So this is the name div, and this is the contact div over here. Alright, let's see. We have our row class, which is used multiple times. It just gives us a padding of 30 pixels on the top and the bottom, so that would be here and here. So each one of these rows has the row class tied to it. So if we look at our, you can see right here, where is it? Right here, this area has an ID of skills but a class of row. Okay, same thing with this profile ID, has a class of row. Okay, so we have an h2.left class, which I imagine is just an h2 that floats to the left. Yep, it has a font style of italic. So the h2 left is these here, profile, skills, technical. Okay, profile. Let's just get the rest of this. Okay, so under the h2 left, we have the profile paragraph, which floats to the right and is 700 pixels. That's this here, this paragraph. Okay, skills, unordered list. The list items float to the left. That is these here. Each one of these is a list item. They're 180 pixels wide. Top right padding of 40 pixels, so from here to here, here to here, is 40 pixels. Technical table is floats to the right and is 700 pixels wide. That's this whole area. Let's see. We have a border bottom for the table columns. This solid border right here. Experience, let's see, float right, 700 pixels. So basically everything on this side floats to the right and is 700 pixels wide. Okay, education, 700 pixels. Education div h3, 18 pixels, so that is this here. And then the footer, we have text align to the center, and we have 10 pixels padding. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Let's save that. Make sure we save our index file, and hopefully our version. Yep, there we go. So it looks exact. So, you know, it's a quick project, but it implements all of the stuff we've talked about. I think we've discussed everything there is to about basic HTML. So next we'll be getting into JavaScript and jQuery.